Hi, I'm Sophia Sanchez, and this is my dad, E.J. Nakis. I'm going to talk a little bit with him today about what life was like back on Davis Islands in the 1960s. So very much looking forward to sharing that with you. So Dad, I am so happy you're here just to share a little bit of the story with me, and
Sure.
almost like a keepsake also for Ava, and just for us to hear the story of Davis Island. So it's changed so much.
Yes.
I wanted to start, and I've had a few people that have messaged me like, you know, I was like, what do you want to hear my dad say? And they really wanted to know kind of how the community, in your opinion, has changed from back when you grew up there to where it is now, because it is such a different place.
Yes, it is.
I guess first, just tell me the story of you when you guys first moved on there with Yaya and Papu, and how it came to be you were on the islands.
Well, back in 1961, my father decided to move to Davis Island from West Tampa. And back in those days, there was a lot of property available in West Tampa. In Davis Island. And however, the homes were kind of sparse at that point in time. The island wasn't completely developed at that point. Mm-hmm. And you still had pine trees all over the island, which they're now all gone. There are no more lots left on Davis Island. And back in those days, you could build a house for very, very little.
Yeah, you guys,
right.
I mean, if memory serves me right, because I think you and Mom still have the original deed of sale,
Yes.
It was like $18,000
Yes.
for the
Plus
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the lot.
And the lot was $11,500 on the water, which you can't even approach that today.
Right.
So they built it from scratch. I more or less laid out the floor plan for the house. They had to live in an apartment there, which is still there on Davis Boulevard near the hospital.
Okay.
All right, it took almost 6 months to build that house. And they did a quality job, okay, at that point in time. And our neighbors were great. We enjoyed it. It was quiet there. And finally, I left while the house was under construction.
Where'd you go?
I went to Los Angeles to live.
Oh, that's right, yes.
I was 24 years old, and I took some friends with me, and we left. All right.
This was your like overnight 3-day extravaganza driving to Los Angeles?
Yes. Well, we drove first to San Francisco.
I didn't know.
And there were 4 of us in the car, and we made it in 44 hours.
That's crazy.
We didn't stop. We just rotated drivers. So anyway, to get back to Davis Island, back in those days, you had a different set of rules, a different set of people. And we made friends easily back then, and it was a whole totally new environment for us at that point in time. The history of Tampa, of course, is, an amazing one. We started here when I first came in 1940. There were only 60,000 people in Tampa. That's it. Nothing south of Jackson Street, I would say, was very, very dilapidated.
Right.
Ashley Drive, meatpacking houses. Mm-hmm. But everything centered in downtown Tampa. Women dressed fantastic. Men wore hats, and everything was downtown. So we didn't have the traffic we have today, but Tampa General was there on the island at that point in time, but things began to change pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And Tampa began to grow very rapidly, and now it's a very large city and much improved from what it was from the old days.
Well, I remember spending summers there, and like for me, some of the things when I'm talking about the island and how it's changed, like the smell of the island,
Yes.
that's gone. There was like a super sweet grass whether it was the jasmine or the fresh cut grass. Like there was, I don't know what it was because I was so young at the time, but
Yes.
the lightning bugs. I remember the lightning bugs.
Yes.
I remember the smells. I remember how fast you were allowed to go over the little canal bridge right there on West Davis.
On West Davis, yes.
Yeah, like taking air in the
Yes,
Cadillac
and
going over the.
to create fun for y'all in the back
Sure,
seat.
sure.
But also the bay, Tampa Bay, there was a beautiful green color, and that's no longer there. But in any event, we've survived storms, floods.
So, but you also, back then, even when Yaya lived by herself for so many years on the house, there was never a big hurricane that came
No,
through.
we haven't had a
Which is-
major hurricane here in many, many years. No, just
I
storms.
mean, she was never scared. She was living there by herself.
Yes.
Single-story home, very old single-story home. And
Yes.
it never had any flooding issues. Like, to me, just how things have changed with that, with
Yes.
floodwaters and things like that, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about like the downtown district, because the downtown district now, I mean, it's grown more than what it was back
Yes.
then, but like there was a grocery store, and I remember going to the grocery store and like everyone knew everyone. It was wonderful.
Well,
It
that
great.
was we had a grocery store on Davis Island back in the old days, Davis Island Supermarket. And a lot of people here went to there, but then it finally got to the point where they couldn't keep it up any longer, so they closed it.
Right.
But downtown Tampa was the centerpiece for just about everything that went on. We had dime stores, we had department stores, government offices, everything was centrally located. And we had Gasparilla festivities that used to come down Franklin Street and turn on what is now Kennedy, which used to be called Lafayette Boulevard, and then Grand Central farther down over the bridge. And those days were amazing. They were packed solid with people that came from everywhere, to see the floats
the costumes
and the
the-
beautiful girls on the floats in
Sure.
their bathing suits, and it was just wonderful. Cold, hot, or indifferent, didn't matter. They wore those bathing suits.
Well, and they have the Burgett brothers had taken so many photos too, documenting that.
Yes.
And for me, being in real estate, it's interesting when people relocating here, they've never heard of Gasparilla.
No.
And I have to. I call it the Pirate and Pony Show when I'm taking new people that are moving here,
Yeah.
like kind of showing them the urban components, and it's almost like a little mini history tour. Just because I love the ephemera and just talking about how it used to be back in the day, but Tampa has such a unique and interesting story, and it's not told so well. I mean, we have an incredible history museum, but that is only a glimpse and a snapshot. It's only when you get to talk with someone one-on-one who grew up here and has all of these stories to share that you really kind of get the grasp and the feel, and like how bustling downtown was, and even just expansive on how the orchard groves were in Hyde Park.
Yes.
And the history of the old Tampa Bay Hotel, which is now the University of Tampa. And even as you go up North Boulevard, on the west side and moving north of downtown, just all of that.
That's exactly right. And over there where the University of Tampa is on Cass Street and Boulevard is where the annual fair used to be before they moved way out to Highway 301.
Right.
And
Is that where Julian B. Lane is now? Is that on the east side of the Boulevard?
A boulevard on the west
West
side
side
in
of the
that
river.
triangular where the railroad tracks come
Yes,
down.
okay, all right.
All right, but University of Tampa still has fireplaces in their classrooms. All right, but Davis Island, I don't know if you knew, was developed by Ben T. Davis, who ended up killing himself
Oh,
because he thought that Davis Island, which was nothing more than a landfill
yes.
with a seawall,
Yeah.
was going to fail.
Oh, wow.
And he couldn't take that. Well, you can see what the end result has been now.
Oh.
We have a constant tearing down and building and tearing down and building.
Sure.
And
sure.
you know, people love the island. The island is really like a sanctuary, you know, for everybody. And
It's such a great place. So
It is.
it's actually, well, it's from my history too. It's Big Grassy Key and Little Grassy Key is how they were separated, because it's islands, and some people say it wrong when they're talking about it, because they don't realize it's not just one island. There's actually a little bit of a smaller one. But yeah, I mean, and then to think that a few years ago, that the Martinique house,
yes,
so as little as you paid back then, you know, as for the investment for a custom built home, and then later for it to have sold for almost $2.5 million is crazy.
it's phenomenal.
But I mean, that's
It's crazy.
just inflation over
Yeah.
a very, very quick period of time.
Yes, I mean, really, it's a short period, relatively short period of time. But like you say, there are on Davis Island, there's the canal that comes through part of the island, ends at the airport. Okay,
Yeah.
the airport has always been there, but the other separate island off to the west was developed, and we looked for property there in the beginning. My father did, but decided to build on Martinique instead of
It's
that
it
island.
was a great lot. It was
Yeah.
a great lot. Did
So-
he have to negotiate, or was it difficult for him to have picked that lot?
No, not back in those days. Things were relatively uncomplicated. All right, you didn't have all of the strict rules and regulations like you have today. All right, so everything has moved on from what it was. Lot lines were different. When this house was built, you had to be 8 feet from your property line. Then it changed in later years to 6 feet, and then down to 4 feet. So, you know, and you can see the end results though. Now these monstrous homes they're putting up there almost take up the entire property.
And they have to reinforce the seawalls.
And
just
they have to
hold in
reinforce
all
the
of
sea falls
weight
and
of-
build them up off of the ground because of the storms.
Absolutely.
So, my father had a restaurant in downtown Tampa for 30 years. and
Tibbetts.
Tibbetts Corner, which was a landmark. And he worked extremely hard. And basically in those days, at the beginning, women were not really out in the workforce. Okay, it wasn't until later when women started going out to work and getting their own together. And that was it. And
Well, I remember, yeah. So having been here as long as I have, I've run into a lot of people that have been to Tibbetts.
Right.
And they remember, your mom.
yeah,
Yeah is Greek for grandmother.
yes,
Running the register. And
At
she
lunch
was, they
every
said
day.
she was not very nice.
yeah.
Because the kids would like misbehave, and she'd be like yelling at the children, and
Yes.
that was kind of like her, right? A little bossy, but they remember it, and it's crazy for just to make that connection, and then for them specifically to remember at the register is crazy. And I know you have a ton of stories too of the restaurant.
A lot of stories, and we dealt with a lot of the city clientele that used to come for lunch every day from City Hall and what have you in the government offices. And but the restaurant did very well for itself. People got their value for what they ordered, and the waitresses were terrific, and they stayed with us for a long time.
How much was a hamburger?
A hamburger was 35 cents,
And a shake? You guys sold
and
one
a shake was 15 cents.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee was a nickel. Gum was a nickel. Okay. You could order a full lunch with a main course, two sides, beverage included, and entree, soup or whatever, for 95 cents. Now, I know it seems impossible today, but we look at prices and we wondered when hamburgers went up to 65 cents, we said, what is the world coming to?
Oh my goodness.
But you could see the changes that have taken place over the years.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Sure. And there's plenty of places around here where hamburgers are $15.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
they're expensive as heck
right,
today.
Right.
On another vein, Jimmy Furman, who had the first Chevrolet dealership here in Tampa, was the owner of the property. My father leased the property from him. And at one point, we had an underground river that sunk part of the restaurant down.
Mm-hmm.
We had to close for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
until they pumped 2,000 bags of cement and sand to fill it in to make it stable again.
Sure.
So, but we opened back up and everybody just rushed right back again. But back in the 60s, competition started coming in downtown.
Mm-hmm.
You started having more fast food places,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and people had more of a choice in where they could go and have lunch. So you have to keep up with the times to survive.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but here we are today. Everything has changed.
Sure. So what are some of your, like if you were to say one of your favorite memories of downtown, something that comes to mind, and then one of your favorite memories from life on the island?
Okay, my favorite memories downtown were all the movie theaters. We used to go to a movie theater
Like
when
the
I was
Tampa
a very
Theater?
young kid. Tampa Theater, Florida Theater, Strand Theater, Palace Theater, Park Theater.
Wow, I had no idea there were that
Oh,
many
there were that
theaters.
many down there, and you could go in on Saturday. I remember across from Tampa Theater was the Florida Theater, which of course is not there anymore. And you could go in Saturday, kids, and for 10 cents, 5 to 10 cents, you'd get 2 movies, 5 cartoons, and a cereal that went on for like 15 weeks. And then when Tampa Theater raised their prices to 80 cents to go in there, that just started changing everything. Inflation took off. But we had a host of theaters that we could go to downtown. That was long before
Sure.
AMC and all the rest of these others ever came out.
Oh yeah, I just had no idea there were that many
The
movies.
tallest building was First National Bank,
Mm-hmm.
which was 17 floors, but it's gone now. They tore it down.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see what's happened with high rises in downtown Tampa now. Things have changed drastically over the
Oh
years.
yeah, another one was just approved yesterday.
Another one,
Yep.
yes. They're going to continue to escalate. And of course, things will have to change with it. The environment, the social life, traffic, everything is going to have to change.
But when you went to the theaters on the weekends, how did you get from Davis Islands? Did you ride your bike? Or how did you get to the theater?
Well, no, I didn't live on Davis Island at that time.
Oh,
I
you
lived
were living on Cass
in,
Street.
on Cass Street
Okay.
in West Tampa.
Okay.
Okay. And I had a bike, but I never took that bicycle farther than down to Swan Avenue at the playground there,
Sure.
where you know where the
Up where my old
Winn-Dixie
office used
is
to
now,
be.
the
Yes,
railroad
yep,
tracks.
yep.
And we had our bikes in the neighborhood. We made fun with our bikes. We rode together, raced together, had fun. And when we were able to drive, we would drag race.
I know. Up towards Seminole Heights. Is what
Yes,
you
up
told
towards
me. Yes,
Seminole,
on
Florida Avenue and Seminole Heights.
Sure.
You know, the cops had their hands full. But anyway, so, you know, little by little, it was great living in West Tampa because all our neighbors knew each other. We had beautiful porches, and everybody helped everybody when they needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And we had vendors come around, different vendors, you know,
Like
And-
door to door.
door to door.
Right.
It was wonderful, and they would have vegetable trucks, ice cream things. They would come. The iceman would have to deliver ice to us at the house
Sure.
from the nearby ice company on Albany Avenue and Cass to keep the refrigerator cool. We didn't have that kind of refrigerator in those days, and no television, just radio.
So much has changed.
Oh my gosh, a phone,
Right.
party line phones. where you shared a phone system with several
Now
neighbors.
this is hilarious because you did like a reenactment. I think it was of Yaya trying to answer the phone or something, and then the switchboards and.
Well,
You
no,
know what I'm talking about? Like.
well, back then, switchboards back in the day.
Right, so you could get somebody else's call
Yes,
altogether.
yes, you could make the wrong switch. And not only that, you'd pick up the phone and you'd hear somebody talking on there, and you said, "Excuse me," and you'd have to hang up and wait until they finished. Now, with today's laws, with the privacy thing, forget it. That wouldn't work, okay? That's how much things have changed.
Right.
And when TV came in the early 50s, we had only 3 channels, all right? And they went on at 3 o'clock and off like 11 or 12 at night maximum, okay? And that's how it was. Things were simple, very simple. Black and white, we didn't have color TV. You know, it's just, we made our own fun, and that was basically
So
it.
what was, like, so your favorite memory living on Davis Islands itself? What would, like, I know you went to the pool there.
Yes, Davis Island swimming pool.
Yeah, which is now very different.
Yes.
Such a great, it's so still fantastic. It's a
Exactly.
little treasure.
Yeah.
But I remember going there sometimes with Yaya, and it was like that tiered level pool.
They had the
and-
tier levels, yes, and it was a little bit overwhelming for me when I first went because I was such a young person. Okay, but
What, it was too big, or?
it was too big.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big
Now
pool area.
everything looks smaller because I'm grown up.
Sure.
But yeah, the swimming pool was always an asset to the island. No two ways about it. The yacht club has always been there. All right, the airport has always been there. We had a jet crash into Davis Island one day from MacDill Air Force Base. Destroyed a house.
That's not good.
You know, but the serenity of the island is what is probably one of the most attractive features.
To
You know,
be
of
so
the
close
island.
to a growing, it's like an urban suburb.
It's
but
amazing,
just-
and so close to the downtown busyness down there, and you know, but it's a wonderful place. They replaced the bridge going on to Davis Island over the years. They tore it down and built a new bridge. All right, they've expanded Tampa General Hospital to the point now where it is a whole complex area with buildings.
Oh, sure, it's a leading
It's
hospital.
a leading hospital, and you know, the convention center was not there. We didn't have a convention center. There used to be a dealership there,
Oh.
where the convention center is a Cadillac dealership years
wow.
ago. Harbor Island, there was nothing on Harbor
I
Island.
remember that too. I remember with the tram going over
Exactly.
to there when they first started it. So like the Gasparilla flotilla with all the boats on the channel, did they do that? Was the flotilla even around
we
back
per
then to
se
that?
had a Gasparilla festivity. It would come down the same channel as it does now, but it would go, instead of where it is between Harbor Island and Davis Island, it would come down the bay side
Okay.
and go straight under the what is now Kennedy Boulevard Bridge,
Sure.
which was Lafayette Street, and
Okay.
the bridge would open,
Okay.
and the ship with a big mast
Yes.
would go through. That
Okay.
was the route. So you had a different setup at
Yeah,
that point.
and those are in the historic photos.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
didn't have all the boats like you have today.
Right,
No,
right.
no, you didn't. But they had a big festivity with Gasparilla. It was always a big affair,
It still is.
you know, for people, and now it's even bigger.
I know.
With
It's-
Ybor City parades and all of that stuff. It's yeah, it's changed drastically.
Well, Daddy, thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, because I really enjoyed this.
Good.
Brings back a little bit of history for me as a young kid growing up here in this city.
Well, we'll
You
see.
know?
We'll see the feedback we get. I hope maybe we can do this more often. I know there's a number of other people too. I'd love to talk to.
Love to talk to,
Just,
yes.
I do the Hobson History Tour, and with that, I've talked to so many historians and people that have the rich culture and history.
Yes.
And it's just you can't get that through
No.
a book. You can't. Yeah, I love the History Museum. but that is, it's off hands, where when you're talking with someone about the stories, you get a better sense of it. So,
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
well, thank you so
You know,
much.
thank you for
Yeah.
having me, and I do appreciate it.
If you have any questions specific or want us to do this again, please let us know. Drop a
Yes.
message below and
We'd be
I'll
happy
be
to
back
do
in
it.
touch. Have a great day.